What's going on? It's really good to see you face to face, you know, because I've just been in my little dungeon making WrestleMania. Today, I'm going to be answering questions submitted by you about the show. Shout out to Ship Theory for the idea, because after all of the stuff that happened on WrestleMania, I'm pretty much fresh out. So, now I promised my boy Ship Theory for the idea I would make sure his question made it in. So I went and I found it, didn't I? So good for you. So first off, congratulations Murph on another great WrestleMania. It's only my second in the whole entire existence of the channel, which makes me depressed, but that's a whole other story. What was the hardest match to put together? Had to be the Money in the Bank ladder match. Just so many moving parts. So many different things to think about, where certain wrestlers are around the ring and always trying to remember where they are so that when they come back in the ring, they come in from the right side and that sort of thing. I had no idea that match was half an hour until I edited it. Nick Ruiz, which matches on this card were booked very long term and which ones were thrown together booked sort of last minute, if any? So the ones that were most long term was obviously Bryan and Cruz. We had that idea. You see the video package. That was when we knew that we were going to do Bryan and Cruz. Short term would be Xia Li, Liv Morgan. I didn't actually know, I don't know, like a couple of weeks before, because I really wanted Liv on the card because she's really great. It's Lock 2K. Were there any original plans to reunite old ESM for WrestleMania? If so, why? No. WrestleMania was always going to be the culmination of the story. Blaze Wrestling. Now, I know Blaze has a couple of really good questions, so if you hear that name a couple of times, you know why. What match do you think was the best straight-up wrestling match of the night, not including things like emotion or storylines? There's three. I think Keith Lee versus Walter would be number one. Chad Gable versus Cesaro as a pure wrestling match with some of the counters and some of the edits in that match was great. And Almas versus Cedric. The Sonic Wolves, my boy. One of the biggest things I have to ask is doing one night or two nights better for the creator, meaning which format takes a lot out of you as a creator. I think they're pretty much the same. The only thing that made making two nights difficult was once I had finished night one, I had such a sense of relief, and then I thought, oh, I have to go and do this all over again. I think I'm just so much better, and I have a much better workflow than I did when I made the last WrestleMania, so I'd say night 1 and 2 was easier. Blaze Wrestling again. Are there any matches you changed the outcome of last minute? No. The only thing I did and R on was the Money in the Bank ladder match. I almost changed that on the fly and had Rusev win. I feel as though Johnny Gargano in that position has never really been a thing in the series, and I'm interested to play with that dynamic of Johnny Gargano in sort of a top spot. Robin Plays Games, a Mercer Elite member. You love to see it, don't you? How long did it take for you to do the Wyatt versus Samoa Joe match, and what would you say is the best match you worked on? It actually didn't take that long. Making the Survivor Series set from ages ago, I had to go back to the video. Luckily, these games haven't really had anything added to them since I made that Survivor Series video. Outside of that, recording it was very, very quick, very, very easy. The part that took the longest would have been the actual match that took place after all of that sort of, you know, cinematic stuff. Blaze Wave Wrestling again. How do you come up with the ideas for some of the spots like Dunn landing on the rope for the counter of Feast Your Eyes? I was just watching the first Backlash from 5 years ago, and even back then the Phoenix Splash into the RKO was in, yeah. I remember having that Phoenix Splash into the RKO idea, and that was the only premise for the match. I was like, I don't care what happens during the match as long as we get to that spot, and that's the end. Some I have in mind, some I go, I need to get this spot in there. You know, like the Keith Lee Walter finish with the clothesline and the collapse onto him. I had that idea. The Feast Your Eyes one is actually funny because when I was recording the match, I was really happy with where I was at in the match and the lead up to that moment, but I wasn't ready for the match to end then because it didn't feel like that was the logical finish to the match. And I didn't realize that I had a finisher instead of a signature. He hit the finisher in that corner. I was like, oh, I'm really happy with that lead up, and I don't really want to waste time going back just to try and get the same moment again. I started thinking, what's a way that I could possibly counter that? So I went into highlight reel and I started watching it back, because the modded moves from 2K20 you can't reverse. They don't have mid-counter reversals or anything like that because they're modded. I started thinking, okay, what is he near? Okay, he's near the corner. I wonder if I could get away with him flipping over and his feet sort of accidentally landing on the middle rope. And then from there, we can figure out where to go from the middle rope into the finish, which of course was Dunn's body giving out on him, because the whole story was always going to be Dunn's body just couldn't quite get through the tournament, and you know, the big man was just too big, he was just too strong. But some spots are really well thought out, like the Cesaro deadlift suplex into the European uppercut. I always had that plan for a WrestleMania spot. Royal Rambler, when you're starting up a universe mode, what's the best method to plan out long-term storylines? I myself am currently running a core universe mode and would like some tips for long-term storytelling. Love Mania. It's just pretty straightforward. Let's say it's WrestleMania, for example. Make a card and book backwards from there. That's probably the simplest advice I could give you. Elijah, how many days did it take? I mean, it took probably 2 weeks to record it, but I wasn't recording 12 hours a day every day. I would sit down and maybe do one match for the day, and then if I didn't feel like going on, I wouldn't. The plan was always to put WrestleMania out just before 2K22 dropped, have a couple of weeks off, and then launch into 2K22 off the back of WrestleMania. Obviously that wasn't to be, so I ended up just saying, right, I'm just going to take my time with this. I have plenty of time until the new game comes out now. Let's just take our time and get it right. Braden Wilson, has the last 12 months of releases affect how you book WrestleMania, and if so, how? Now, this has been one of the most common questions I've been asked about all the releases. It hasn't affected anything. All of the key guys will be staying. Ahmed Assam, he says, aside from the main event, which did you feel most excited to commentate on? Keith Lee, Walter. That's going to come up a lot because I absolutely love that match. Leaky13 says, coming from someone who's made a WrestleMania event themselves, how did you decide on the match placement? I basically looked at it from the perspective of, let's give the audience something different in each segment. I would say you've got to start the show off hot, Money in the Bank, and Cedric and Almas. I just think about it in terms of, okay, we've just used a ton of weapons in this match. Let's have a real slow down sort of wrestling match after that. Then we can ramp it up again, slow it down, ramp it up. HT180, what was the idea behind the creation of the WrestleMania Arena, and will you ever be using custom championships from Community Creations? I think the safest thing to do is to have the current WWE titles, because we've run into the trouble before of when you change games, you don't have the titles anymore. They go away, like the created titles go away. You have to create them again, and you run the risk of like certain belts not being in the game and whatever. The arena, we downloaded the WrestleMania 27 arena by Matt Fick from Pro Wrestling Mods. The link is in the description. Originally, we wanted to create a custom one, a fully custom one. Might flash the image up somewhere here, drawn by Kid Kingpin by hand. I asked him to like put together what he would love to see as a WrestleMania Arena Vegas themed. We originally wanted to build that custom, but no one had the time to do it or wanted to do it from the modding community, which is totally fine. So then we went to the next best thing. Let's download an existing WrestleMania Arena and reskin it. So that's what we did. I went and got the image for the back, and Elliot photoshopped it to have the WrestleMania logo on the stand and all of that sort of stuff. The ring aprons, the ramp, and I think that's it. And then I made the moving graphic that you saw on the Tron. And then we gave it all to Legend, and Legend installed it all in those places and replaced those textures with our textures. And I ended up paying an obscene amount of money for that image that was on the back Tron, but it is what it is. I think it looked great. Brad Curlin says, were you happy with everything with the SmackDown Women's title that went down? Just wondering, because I like the Cell stuff, but leaving the title off the card seemed weird. Yeah, it was one of those things that just made so much sense, and I had that idea for months and months and months. When I decided that it was going to be Nikki Cross and Toni Storm going into WrestleMania, I thought, let's play on the Emma stuff. And then when I sort of had the light bulb moment, I said, well, I've got a Hell in a Cell match already on the card. How cool would it be, and how unique, and something that I've never seen before, if I actually went and had sort of almost two matches in one, like two stories in one intertwined? I absolutely had the thought of, am I taking a little bit away from Toni Storm with this? But I honestly think they had one of the biggest moments of the entire two shows. Outside of the main event, potentially, I don't think there was a bigger moment. So sometimes I think if you've created such a great moment that a match almost is worse than what would have happened. And this is the whole thing with Nikki Cross, is that's the way the character has been this whole time. She's volatile, she's unpredictable. Things don't always go the way that linear WWE booking has always gone throughout the years, and I try and think about that constantly. Big Man, he says, great job on WrestleMania, Murphs. Love the effort you put into the show. I really appreciate that, man. I had a lot of people reach out and say that. It's very cool. How and why did you decide to have WrestleMania take place in Nevada? I was literally in Las Vegas. I was there for 2K, for the 2K20 launch. I think I was on my way to the airport to go home after I'd been there for like 2 days or whatever. And the Allegiant Stadium was being built at the time. And I asked the Uber driver, what is that going to be? And he said, oh, the NFL team's going to move. I think it's the Raiders, right? They're going to move from Oakland to Las Vegas. And I was like, whoa. And I said, that's really awesome. They should totally have wrestling there one day. I said that to the Uber driver, and he said, oh yeah, wrestling would be great in there. That was when I made the decision, in an Uber in Las Vegas. And I actually sent, give me a second, I bought this in Las Vegas at like a, you know, CBS or whatever it is. And I actually sent this, I actually sent this to Defract as a reference for what I wanted the logo to look like. So he made this the WWE logo, and then obviously this is WrestleMania. Like, this is a very famous sign. Hundreds of other people, like, you just have to do a Google search for WrestleMania Las Vegas. They made the same thing, but I think Defract absolutely knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much for all the support on WrestleMania so far, guys. It's been amazing. Go back and watch it again. Why not? Love you guys, and I'll catch you very, very soon. I think I've absolutely f***ed my laptop with that, dropping that on there.